Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. There's a sound that stays with you long after you hear it. It's not loud or alarming, but it lingers in the quietest parts of your mind. It's the sound of something small, something precious, losing its place in the world. It was a Tuesday evening, just like any other. The kind of night where you expect routine to cradle you in its arms and make you forget the world around you. I was sitting in my office, just finishing up some last-minute work. Claire, my wife, had said she would be back late. She had been working on a new project, and lately, it seemed like she was always too busy for me. But I didn't think much of it. She had her things, and I had mine. But something was different that evening. The first sign that something was wrong wasn't the phone call, though that would have been the easy giveaway. No, the first sign was much subtler than that. It was the way she entered the house. I was sitting at my desk when I heard the door click open. I didn't think much of it at first, but there was something in the way the door shut behind her. It wasn't hurried or stressed, but there was a certain finality to it, like she was leaving something behind. She didn't call out my name like she usually did. No greeting. Nothing. Just the soft thud of her shoes against the hardwood floor as she walked past my office, heading toward the living room. I figured she'd be heading straight for the kitchen. She always did, even when she wasn't hungry. But tonight was different. I watched her as she moved, and there was a strange kind of grace in her steps. She didn't look hurried or stressed. She looked content. By the time I left my office to check on her, she was sitting on the couch. And there he was. I didn't notice him at first. He was sitting beside her on the sofa, his face turned toward her, but not enough to make it obvious that they were sitting closer than two friends should. She was smiling, genuine, unguarded. She was laughing, her body language open, warm. He was leaning in, his hand casually resting near hers. I froze in the doorway. It wasn't like what you see in movies. There was no dramatic revelation, no loud confrontation. It was just me standing there, watching the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, share a moment with another man. I didn't know who he was, and I didn't want to know. The air between us grew thick with tension as I stood there, watching them interact like I didn't exist. For a brief moment, I felt like I was intruding. But it wasn't just that. There was something else, something colder. I could see it in her eyes, the way she looked at him. There was a depth there that wasn't there with me anymore. I wasn't sure how long I stood there. A minute? 10. It felt like time had stopped. And then, finally, I heard her voice. Are you just going to stand there? Claire's voice broke the silence. I hadn't even realized she had seen me. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't embarrassed. In fact, she almost sounded amused. It was a casual question, as though she didn't know that I had just stumbled upon a moment that would shatter everything between us. She didn't seem guilty. She didn't seem ashamed. But I couldn't answer her. I couldn't form the words. He looked up then, giving me a quick glance. The guy had the nerve to smile. Hey man, he said. We were just talking. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. I stared at him, not knowing how to respond. What was I supposed to say? Thanks for letting me know you're sleeping with my wife. Or, nice to meet you, stranger who's been having a great time with the woman I promised to love forever. I couldn't speak. It was like the words were trapped in my throat, fighting against the flood of emotions crashing against my chest. But Claire wasn't done. She looked at me, then back at him, and then her hand gently rested on his knee. Leo, she said, her voice suddenly softer. This is Ethan. We've been seeing each other for a few months now. Months. The word hung in the air like a poisonous gas, choking me, suffocating me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I felt the weight of every second that had led to this moment. Every night she had come home late. Every lie she had fed me. Every excuse she'd given me. But then, something happened. Something caught my eye. Something small. Something that wasn't even supposed to be in the room with us. It was the ring. My wedding ring. It was resting on the coffee table between Claire and Ethan. I don't know why I noticed it, but I did. It was spinning. Slowly, methodically, almost like it had a mind of its own. She saw me staring at it, and for the first time that night, her expression changed. Her smile faltered, just slightly. She reached forward, intending to stop it, but I beat her to it. My hand shot out and grabbed the ring, the cold metal sharp against my palm. I don't know why, but I held it. I just stared at it in my hand, and suddenly everything became so clear. In that moment, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit to myself. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an affair that had happened once, by accident. This was intentional. This was calculated. And she had known. She had known exactly what she was doing the entire time. And now, she was watching me as I held the evidence of her betrayal. Ethan wasn't the problem. Claire was. And with that realization came another. I wasn't going to be the one who walked away from this. I held the ring in my hand, my fingers trembling slightly. It was cold, too cold, but not as cold as the realization that was settling in my chest. I couldn't understand it, couldn't grasp how everything could have shifted so quickly. How had we gone from what I thought was a happy marriage to this? This betrayal? Claire was sitting beside Ethan, both of them watching me, waiting for me to say something. But I couldn't find the words. My mind was racing in a million directions. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she come home late, and I had just assumed she was working? How many lies had I swallowed without even questioning them? Ethan cleared his throat, breaking the silence. Look, man, I'm sorry you had to find out like this, he said, though his tone sounded too calm, almost detached. He didn't seem to have the same weight of guilt that I did. I wanted to tell him to shut up, to get out of my house, but I couldn't. I couldn't even move. Claire, on the other hand, didn't look sorry at all. She was watching me with a strange kind of coolness in her eyes. Her smile was gone, replaced by something colder, something more calculated. It was almost like she was waiting for me to say something, like she expected me to understand. I didn't want you to find out like this, she finally spoke, her voice low. But I think you deserve to know the truth. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation. I wanted to understand how she could sit there so calmly with him, as if this wasn't the end of everything I thought I knew about her. But I didn't scream. I just stood there, holding the ring in my hand, staring at it like it was the only thing that could make sense of this mess. What is it, Claire? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What do you want me to say? Her eyes flickered for a moment, and then she looked down at the table. She sighed, as if what she was about to say was the hardest thing in the world. But I didn't believe her. I didn't believe that any of this was hard for her. I don't know how it happened, she said, her voice shaky now, but not from regret. From something else, guilt maybe? I couldn't keep living the way we were. Things between us had changed, Leo. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep pretending. Pretending. That word hit me like a slap in the face. She'd been pretending, all this time. Pretending everything was fine, pretending we were happy. But the truth was, she'd been lying to me. Lying to both of us. Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside her, but he didn't say anything more. He just watched, like some passive observer, waiting for Claire to take the lead. I never meant for you to find out this way, she repeated, but the words didn't feel real anymore. They were empty, just another lie to add to the pile. I couldn't take it anymore. I dropped the ring back onto the table, the sound it made echoing in the silence between us. It was like the final nail in the coffin, the thing that made it all so final. Why him? I finally asked. The words came out in a broken whisper. Why Ethan? Claire looked at me for a long moment before answering. Because with him, I feel alive again, she said. He makes me feel like I matter. Like I'm not just here with you. It's like I'm invisible. And I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live like that. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how selfish she was, how she had broken me. But instead, I felt something inside me snap. There was no point in arguing with her. She had made her choice, and now, all I could do was deal with the mess she'd left behind. I should have known, I muttered, my voice cracking. I should have seen it. You were never really here with me, were you? Claire didn't respond. She just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Ethan, still sitting there like a ghost, stood up quietly. I think we should go, he said, his voice casual, like he was suggesting they leave a party, not the home where I had once thought we were a family. Claire stood up with him, but before she left, she turned to face me one last time. There was no apology in her eyes, just a strange mixture of relief and sadness. I never wanted to hurt you, Leo, but this was something I had to do. With that, she walked out of the room, following Ethan out of the door without a second glance. I stood there, motionless, for what felt like an eternity, unable to move, unable to understand what had just happened. The ring, still sitting there on the table, glinted in the dim light. And for the first time, I realized that it wasn't just the symbol of our marriage. It had become a reminder of everything I had lost, everything that had slipped away without me even noticing. I had always thought that love was something that could be saved, something you could fight for. But now I wasn't so sure. The only thing left in the room was the silence and the spinning ring. And that was when I knew everything I had once believed about our life together had been nothing more than a lie. The door slammed shut, and I was left standing in the middle of the living room, the silence louder than any argument could have been. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body felt heavy, like it had been drained of everything except the cold, suffocating reality of what had just happened. Claire and Ethan were gone. Just like that. They had slipped away from me, leaving me alone with nothing but the empty space between us and the soft, spinning ring on the table. I walked over to it slowly, the sound of my footsteps in the stillness amplifying with each step. I reached for the ring, feeling its cold weight as I picked it up. It was the same ring I had placed on Claire's finger 6 years ago, promising her forever. But now it felt foreign, almost like a curse. I stared at it for a long time, lost in the emptiness of it all. The memories flooded back. The late-night talks, the laughter, the promises. They all seemed so far away now, as if they had never been real. Was any of it real? Or had I just been fooling myself? The doorbell rang, breaking through the fog of my thoughts. I almost ignored it. But something inside me stirred. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was the desperate need for closure, but I knew I couldn't just sit there. I opened the door, and there she was. Claire. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying, but there was no sign of apology on her face, only a strange kind of hesitation. She stood there for a moment, just looking at me, like she wasn't sure what to say. I couldn't leave it like this, she said quietly, her voice soft, almost broken. Like what? I asked, my voice colder than I intended. Claire stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her eyes flickering nervously as she closed the door behind her. Leo, I never wanted to hurt you. But what I said earlier about Ethan, it wasn't the whole truth. I didn't say anything. I just let her talk, though I wasn't sure I cared anymore. The truth? What was the truth? She'd already told me enough for a lifetime. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear more lies. I've been feeling trapped, she continued, looking down at her hands. You were always there, always trying to make everything perfect, but I wasn't happy. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to say that I was fading away. I couldn't believe it. Was she seriously blaming me for her affair? For her betrayal? I tried to make you happy, Claire, I said, my voice shaking with frustration. I did everything I could. And this is how you repay me? She winced at my words, but didn't back down. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered, her voice barely audible. But I didn't know how else to escape. Escape. The word hit me like a ton of bricks. Escape. As if she was trying to flee from me, from us. As if everything we had built together was just a prison to her. I stepped back, shaking my head. You've already escaped, Claire. You've been gone for a long time. The words hung in the air between us, and she didn't try to deny them. Instead, she just looked at me with that same vacant expression, the one that said everything I needed to know. She wasn't the woman I married anymore. And maybe I wasn't the man she needed. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving Claire standing in the doorway, holding onto the pieces of a life we would never get back. I didn't expect her to come back. Honestly, I thought that would be the end of it. Claire had made her choice, and the moment she walked out the door, I thought it was over. But when the doorbell rang again just a few minutes later, I felt a chill run through me. I didn't want to answer it, but something inside me screamed that I had to, that I needed to hear the last part of this twisted story, the part one hadn't been told yet. I opened the door, and there she was again, standing there with her hands tightly clasped together, her eyes puffy, but there was a resolve in her gaze that I hadn't seen before. The woman who had once been everything to me now seemed so distant, like she was already somewhere else. I can't leave it like this, she said, her voice trembling. Leo, please, just hear me out. Please. I didn't invite her in. I didn't want to. But I couldn't bring myself to tell her to leave either. What else is there to say? I asked, feeling the bitterness in my throat. She took a deep breath, as if trying to gather whatever was left of her courage. I never thought I'd hurt you like this. And I never wanted to, Claire said softly. But what we had, it wasn't enough anymore. I wasn't enough for you, Leo, and I wasn't enough for myself. I swallowed hard, staring at her as if she was a stranger. Is that what this is? Is that your excuse for everything? That you weren't enough? I couldn't keep the anger from creeping into my voice. What about me? What about the man who's been here for you? Who would have done anything to make this work? Did I not deserve to know what was going on? Did I not deserve anything? Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't wipe them away. She just stood there, her shoulders sagging with the weight of her own guilt. I wasn't happy, she whispered. And I couldn't tell you. I didn't want to hurt you, but I felt trapped. And then Ethan came along, and he made me feel alive again. He made me feel like me. I closed my eyes, fighting to keep the tears from coming. My hands were shaking, my chest tight with the pressure of everything crashing down around me. So this is it, huh? I asked, though it wasn't really a question. It was more of a statement. This is the end of us. Claire nodded slowly, her voice cracking as she spoke. I never wanted this to happen. But I can't go back. I can't pretend anymore. She took a step closer, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the urge to reach out, to hold on to the woman I thought I knew. But I stopped myself. It was too late for that. I'm sorry, Leo. I am. I didn't know what to say to that. The apologies seemed so empty, like the last thread of a rope that had already snapped. How could I accept it? How could I forgive her when everything inside me screamed that I had been betrayed in the most painful way? I took a step back, the coldness between us growing with each second that passed. I don't want your apologies, Claire, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't need them. I need you to be honest with yourself. I need you to admit that this wasn't just a mistake. This was a choice. Your choice. She opened her mouth as if to argue, but nothing came out. She just stood there, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and relief, as if shedding the burden of her secret had somehow made her lighter. Finally, I spoke, my voice calm but final. You've made your choice, and I can't change that. You don't need to apologize anymore. You need to live with it. And with that, I closed the door between us. I didn't slam it. I didn't shout. I just closed it. Because some things are better left behind. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Claire with him, her smile so natural, so effortless, replayed over and over in my mind. I could still hear the sound of her voice, her soft words, and the casual way she said, "I'm sorry," as if she had apologized for forgetting to buy milk, not for shattering everything we'd built. The next morning, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched coffee in front of me. The house felt empty, like it was just a shell of what it had been. There was no laughter, no sound of Claire humming as she got ready for the day. Just silence. A silence that was suffocating. I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't sure who it was. I didn't care. But I got up anyway, dragging my feet as if I was walking through mud. When I opened the door, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. It was Ethan. He stood there, his face calm, almost detached, like he wasn't standing on the doorstep of the man whose wife he had just taken. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, staring at me, as if waiting for me to speak. I didn't invite him in. I didn't know what to say, what to feel. Part of me wanted to punch him in the face, to scream at him until my throat went raw. But another part of me just wanted to know why. Why Claire? Why him? Leo, he said, breaking the silence, his voice almost too calm. I wanted to talk. I think we owe it to each other. I couldn't believe it. He thought we owed each other something? This wasn't some negotiation. This was betrayal, pure and simple. Talk about what? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but failing miserably. How much you're enjoying your life now. How much you've taken from me. Ethan didn't flinch. He just looked at me, almost sympathetically. It wasn't like that, he said, his tone still too collected. I didn't come here to rub it in. I came to say I'm sorry. Not just for what happened, but because I know. I know I'm the last person you want to see right now. I was silent. I didn't want to hear his apologies. I didn't care if he was sorry. He had no right to feel sorry for me. He took a step forward, but I didn't move. He continued, I've known Claire for a while now. We've both been through a lot. And I get it. You're angry. You're hurt. He paused, his eyes softening. But I'm not the enemy here. Neither is Claire. She's not the same person she was when you first met. That stung. It stung worse than I could have imagined. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, to yell at him and demand he leave, but I couldn't find the words. Part of me was still trying to process everything. So, what do you want? I finally asked, my voice a little more forceful than I intended. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said, shaking his head. I'm not here to fix things for you. I wanted to say that I never meant to hurt you. And if I could take back what happened, I would. But I can't. None of us can. We all have to live with the choices we've made. I just stared at him, trying to make sense of his words. He wasn't apologizing for stealing Claire from me. He was apologizing for what he thought I'd been through. But that wasn't enough. It wasn't even close. You don't get it, do you? I asked, my voice shaking. It's not just about Claire. It's about everything. You. I broke off, unable to say what I needed to. He didn't get it. He couldn't. For a long moment, Ethan just looked at me. I never wanted to be the guy who took your life apart, he said quietly. But sometimes things happen. Sometimes people change. His words hung in the air, as hollow as they were true. And that's when I realized something. Claire wasn't the only one who had changed. The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions, work, meals, pretending everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was unraveling inside me. I was angry, hurt, but mostly, I was lost. Then came the text. It was late, maybe around midnight, when my phone buzzed. I wasn't expecting anything, certainly not from Claire. I hadn't heard from her since she left, and frankly, I didn't want to hear from her. But curiosity got the best of me, and I looked. It was her. Leo, I can't stop thinking about you. I need to see you. Please. Just one last time. I froze. I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. My brain was screaming at me to just delete the message, to block her number and never look back. But something in the words, the desperation, got under my skin. She needed to see me? After everything? I didn't know what I was expecting, but I certainly didn't expect the ache that crept into my chest. Part of me wanted to tell her to get lost, to remind her how badly she had hurt me. But another part, the part that had loved her for so long, couldn't just turn it off. Why? I typed back, my fingers trembling. Why now? The reply came almost instantly. Because I can't live with myself anymore. Because I made a mistake, Leo. Please just let me explain. I read those words over and over, each time feeling the weight of them in a different way. Could I really listen to her explain? Could I really sit across from the woman who had broken me and hear her side of the story? I didn't know. I couldn't decide. But I found myself agreeing to meet her. I wasn't sure what I expected when I agreed to meet her. Maybe I thought she'd show up at the coffee shop with tear-streaked eyes and a heartfelt apology. Maybe a confession of how deeply she regretted everything. I wasn't prepared for the reality. The moment she walked through the door, everything I had been trying to suppress came rushing back. Claire looked different. It wasn't just the way her hair had changed, or the fact that she was wearing a simple black dress that made her look more elegant than I'd ever remembered. It was the way she carried herself. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look ashamed. She looked at peace. I rose from my seat as she approached, but we didn't hug. We didn't even acknowledge the years of intimacy we had shared. It was just the two of us standing there, caught in this strange limbo between what we were and what we had become. Leo, Claire said, her voice barely above a whisper. She sat down across from me, her hands folded neatly on the table, her eyes locked onto mine. There was no hesitation, no guilt in her expression. She looked at me the way she had looked at him, the way she looked at someone who had become a part of the past. I stared at her, trying to find something familiar in her face, but it was like trying to see a ghost of the woman I once knew. The woman who had laughed at my jokes, shared my hopes, and promised to be by my side through thick and thin. She was gone. So, I said, my voice hoarse, you wanted to talk. Claire nodded, but she didn't say anything at first. She was studying me, like I was the one who needed to explain myself. It felt wrong. It felt like she was the one who had the answers, the one who had all the power in this moment. I don't know where to begin, she said finally, her voice trembling ever so slightly. I wish I could go back, Leo. I wish I had told you everything. I didn't want to hurt you, but I don't know how I let it get this far. I leaned forward, the weight of her words pressing down on me like a 1,000-pound stone. The silence that followed her confession felt suffocating. Every part of me wanted to scream, to ask her how she could have done this to us, to me. But I couldn't. I just couldn't find the words. I thought about you every single day, she continued, her voice cracking. And I hated myself for what I was doing. But Ethan, he made me feel alive again. He made me feel seen. And when I saw him, I didn't know how to stop. I thought maybe it was a phase, but it wasn't. I didn't know what to do, Leo. I felt a strange numbness spread through me as I listened to her. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't begging for a second chance. She was just explaining. She was just telling me how she had felt, how she had needed him in ways she couldn't explain. And the more she spoke, the less I recognized her. You don't get it, do you? I finally said, the bitterness rising in my chest. You think I'm just supposed to understand? You think I'm supposed to sit here and listen to you justify what you did? You destroyed everything we had, Claire. And for what? To feel alive again. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. The anger I felt had overtaken everything. She had taken my love, my trust, and replaced it with lies. And now, she was trying to play the victim. I know what I did, she whispered, her voice shaking. And I regret it every day. But the truth is, I don't know if I can ever go back to what we were. I don't know if I can ever be that person again. There it was. The cold reality that I had been avoiding. Claire was telling me the truth. She didn't love me anymore. Not in the way she once had. Not in the way I had needed her to. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. The silence was deafening, thick with everything that had gone unsaid, everything that could never be unsaid. I realized then that I wasn't angry at her anymore. I was angry at myself. Angry for not seeing the signs earlier, for not questioning her behavior, for pretending that things were fine when they clearly weren't. I don't know if I can forgive you, Claire, I said, my voice barely a whisper now. I don't know if I want to. Her face twisted with regret, but she didn't argue. She didn't fight me. I understand, she said quietly. I never expected you to. And that was it. The last piece of our life together fell away. There were no more words, no more explanations. We were just two people, sitting across from each other, knowing that everything had changed. And I knew, without a doubt, that this would be the last time we would ever speak. I watched Claire as she sat there, her face marked with regret, but it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't the man who would beg for closure. I wasn't the man who would keep holding on to something that was broken beyond repair. She had made her choice, and now I was making mine. I think it's time to let go, Claire, I said, my voice steady, finally free of the anger that had once consumed me. The hurt was still there, deep in my chest, but I was no longer letting it control me. You've made your choices, and now I'm going to make mine. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't try to stop me. She didn't even speak. She just nodded, her gaze dropping to the table. She knew. She knew that there was no going back from this. I stood up, the finality of the moment settling over me. Take care of yourself, Claire, I said, my words calm, but carrying the weight of everything that had happened. But don't expect me to be there for you anymore. Not in the way I used to be. I can't be. I walked away without looking back. The days that followed felt different. Lighter. As if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying until it was gone. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like mine. For the first time in months, I felt like I was breathing again. It wasn't easy. I still had moments when the pain crept up on me. Moments when I would think about Claire, about the life we had shared, and I would feel a brief sting. But those moments passed. I had learned that I was strong enough to move forward, to build something better. And then, a few weeks later, I got a message. It was from a mutual friend of Claire's, someone who had always been close to her, but had stayed quiet through the whole mess. The message was short, but the words hit hard. Leo, I don't know how to say this, but Claire, she's been caught. She tried to lie her way out of it, but it's all over now. Ethan found out she was seeing someone else on the side. She's lost everything, and now, she's left to deal with the consequences of her own choices. I sat there, staring at the screen for a moment, the weight of those words sinking in. Claire had fallen from the pedestal I had once put her on. The life she had built with lies had collapsed around her, and she was finally facing the consequences of her actions. For the first time, I didn't feel a flicker of satisfaction or happiness. I didn't feel the need for revenge. I had already let go of all that, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. Sometimes, life has a way of balancing things out, and Claire's karma had caught up with her. I didn't need to be the one to make her suffer. Life had already done that for me. And me? I was finally free. Free from the lies. Free from the weight of her betrayal. I could finally start building a future, one that was mine and mine alone. I could go back to finding my joy, my peace, my strength. I didn't need her anymore. I was the one who had won. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all.